down, make sure your cinch is tight. Horse is kinda snuffy, cold chill up your spine. You'll get your ass moving, son, we're burning daylight.
Howdy there, I'm Matt McKinley and we're burning daylight.
In the saddle till the job's done right.
Welcome to Burning Daylight, the only podcast for the working cowboy.
And so I didn't think it was bad, but the house we live in is 120 some years old.
Oh,
So it's not the best insulated.
I bet not.
We put in a fireplace and we were burning wood as well as running space heaters. And most days we'd turn on a space heater in the bedroom about 3 hours before we had to climb into bed, or else we'd just sit there and shiver in bed until the room warmed up. Oh, it was chilly.
I bet.
Yep.
Yeah, that's we had a few cold days. I don't think it ever got below zero though.
Oh yeah.
It was it was pretty mild, really. Like it hovered around. It maybe got down to right at zero. I don't think it ever dipped below. Dry. We got a nice. When we get it was nice snow in December, and then we didn't get much of anything after that. Had a little snow here and there, but it's pretty pitiful. Snowpack's gone. It's gonna be a dry. Hopefully they get some rain this summer, but I don't know. It's dry everywhere it seems.
Yeah, we've actually had the most moisture that this country's seen in a couple years.
Yeah, that was bad drought. You were not far from those big fires here a couple of years ago, right?
Yep.
Yeah, those were some big ones.
Well, there was a pretty damn big one to the north of us, and Melanie and I, we hiked up through it here the other day to see if we could get horses up through there to go for a pack trip, and the Forest Service is afraid to let people walk up in through there because they're afraid of one of them burnt trees will fall over on someone.
Oh.
And to tell you the truth, the windfall was worse to get through than when we got to the burn.
No
The
shit.
burn, there wasn't anything falling across that trail in the burn.
Huh.
And you know, the crazy winds that we've had just as bad a wind here as any place else.
Yeah.
There was nothing falling over anywhere.
Huh.
As a matter of fact, what's been happening is because we'll have all this rain, it washes through those areas that are burnt, and it runs a bunch of sand and boulders across those roads. Well, there's a big spring up there to the north of, I think they call it Upper Stillwater. That's what that reservoir is. And we had hiked up to where that burn ended to the north.
Okay.
We thought, well, we'll hike up there a little ways further, and we come to a spot where all those boulders had washed into the creek, and it had rerouted the creek, and you couldn't see the trail. It had washed that trail clear away.
Jeez.
All there was just a big boulder field everywhere with water running through it.
Huh.
It was really something.
That's wild.
Yeah, that whole country, they tell me, has changed because of the floods.
Really?
Yep. I don't know what it's like fishing up high, but for quite a while the fishing wasn't real great down low. It's just barely getting better. I don't know if you know, I like to fly fish quite a bit.
Yeah, I've seen some of your pictures. I grew up out on the flatlands, so I never really developed the interest because it was quite a ways to anywhere where you could actually do any fly fishing from where I was.
Well, I'll tell you, Matt, for me, it never was about catching fish, you know, which is probably a good thing because I suck at catching fish. But I just like to be up there in the wilderness, and, you know, it's not hunting season, so you can't shoot anything. So there's something to do. And fly fishing has a lot to do with whipping that string around,
Yeah.
and perfecting that and landing it in different spots. So it's a lot like roping for me.
Mm.
And I absolutely love to rope.
Yeah.
So I have started to learn a little bit about fly fishing to where I can catch fish now.
Yeah.
But it's taken me a while to figure it out, right? I mean, there was a gentleman kind enough to take me aside and teach me a little bit, and it wasn't too long I was catching fish. But man, I'll bet you it was over a year before I could consistently catch anything.
Huh.
Yeah, I mean, it's like hunting for fish.
Yeah.
It really is.
Yeah.
'Cause if you got the wrong kind of fly on, or you're not playing that fly right, they ain't gonna hit it.
Yeah. I used to go bass and catfishing. I wouldn't say a lot, but fairly regular when I back in Kansas before I got married and whatnot. I'd get off at work especially when I was calling feed. I'd get done at like 2:30, 3 o'clock, something like that. So I'd go get a cooler of beer and some worms and just go down to the pond and fish for a couple hours.
Yeah.
Listen to podcasts and fish. That was kind of my jam. And yeah, it's just something relaxing. I don't know if I ever kept it. I'm not much of a fish eater, anyways. I mean, I grew up. I think Abilene, Kansas, is where Eisenhower was from, and that's considered the geographic center of the United States. It's like midway between L.A. and New York, I think.
Huh.
And so I was about, I don't know, probably 4 or 5 hours from Abilene, Kansas. So just about as far as you could get from any major body of water, and still be in the United States. So
Yeah.
we just didn't eat a whole lot of fish. My folks loved seafood. They lived down in South Texas, down by Corpus Christi for a while.
Oh yeah.
And they ate a lot of seafood down there. But yeah, not in southeast Colorado. There's a few rivers here and there, but they were quite a ways from where I was, and
Yeah.
I've never been a big fan of bass to eat. They're pretty fun to catch, but I wasn't a big fan of eating them. So catfish is pretty good though. Catfish, get a good beer batter on catfish. That's pretty tasty.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. So generally speaking, I don't catch many bass. Generally, I'm just hunting trout.
Mm.
And this is good trout waters up here.
Oh
A
yeah.
lot of, oh my gosh, there's a lot of little streams, and the number of lakes in this country, it'd blow your mind. If you
Oh
looked on a
man.
map, there's just lake after lake after lake to the north of us, and we're actually a little bit more north of Duchesne, Utah, than
Okay.
any place else. So we're just at the foot of the mountains.
Mhm.
And when I say at the foot of them, I mean it's starting to be some real pretty country right through here. A lot of
Yeah.
pine trees.
Mhm.
You go up the road about, I don't know if it's even 20 minutes away. You can be in pretty good fishing waters,
Yeah.
and if you put some time in, you can get into a lot of lakes. Just what they call the high mountain lakes up in the high Uintas.
Yeah.
Pretty impressive, really.
Oh, I bet.
Yeah,
Yeah, those mountains over there are really neat. That's really neat country.
yeah, it's kind of cool. It'd be nicer if there was more cowmen over here.
Oh, I know it.
There, there's a handful of them. Mostly a bunch of oil field folks that have cows,
Mm.
and once in a while you'll come across a buckaroo. A lot of wannaroos around this area.
Yeah.
Lot of them, and I don't know why. I'm not sure. I was around it long enough that, to me, there's piss poor hands in every end of the cow business.
Oh, yeah.
And it seems like a lot of guys want to be buckaroos, and I'm just like, what difference does it make? If you're a hand, you're a hand. I
Yeah.
don't care if you got rubber on your horn. If you know what you're doing, you can rope with 30 feet of rope and get the job done. More power to you.
Yep.
I use 60 foot of rope because I ride slow horses.
I was telling my brother-in-law this weekend. I said I'm at the point in my life I've accepted I'm not going to be the best roper out there. I'm not going to be the best bronc stomper out there. I'm not going to be the best horseman, but you could drop me in just about any situation and I could probably get by. I don't know if I'll be the best one out there, but I probably most likely won't be in the way all that much. And and I feel pretty confident about that I could at least hang with just about any situation.
Yeah, that's me. I get around guys around here, and I had a guy walk up to me the other day. All I was doing is helping them brand, and they needed to process a few head of bulls after we were done. And we're pushing bulls up this alleyway, and of course everything's on foot because we're just crowding them up the alleyway through the crowding pen.
Yeah.
And this guy steps up to me. He's like, "You're a pretty good hand," and I was like, "Whatever," you know. I get by, and I just try to get the dang job done.
Yeah.
If somebody thinks that I'm a good hand, they probably haven't been around too many really good hands.
That's kind of how I feel. Like I just try not to stick out one way or the other. I know I'm not good enough to stick out on the real handy side, but I think I'm good enough to where I can kind of blend in and just kind of not be noticed one way or the other.
Right. I like the way Tom Hodson looks at it. He told me, he said, what matters is the guy shows up to work.
Yeah.
That's the bottom line.
A lot of times that's true.
Yeah.
That's it's funny. It always cracks me up, especially like the more and more I'm around cowhands. It cracks me up how just like how romanticized it all became. It's just you know strict moral code and tip your hat, all the stuff, and a lot of that's true. But also like, have you ever met a whole lot of cowboys? A lot of them are some of the worst people in society. But damn, they can rope pretty good. So you let them, you kind of let them hang around.
Oh, for a lot of years, that was something I would tell people is that the hardest people I ever had to get along with were buckaroos.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, some of them were ornery sons of bitches.
Oh yeah.
You could ask anybody.
Mm.
Like old Merv Takis, he was a tough nut now.
Yeah, the guy that rides pins with me now worked for Merv at Squaw Valley. I think is that right?
Yep.
Yeah, yeah. His name. I'll tell you his name off air. I don't know if he wants to be mentioned. So But he's told me a couple stories about that fella, and yeah, he said the same thing. He's a good guy, but he was a rough one.
Yeah. Yeah, and he wasn't the only one that I came across that was really tough to get along with. Some of the tougher ones to get along with were just the ranchers.
Yeah.
I think they had enough of the bullshit and had enough guys that just wanted to buckaroo and they didn't want to do anything but cowboy.
Mm-hmm.
I think they'd had enough and they weren't going to put up with nothing.
Yeah.
Yeah, just really hard nosed and screaming and yelling. I mean, scream so much you didn't know if you're doing the right thing or the wrong thing.
Yeah. It's one of those deals like those memes you see with the guy. It's like the hard pills to swallow, and you look and it's like the reason a lot of ranchers went to four wheelers is because the cowboys drove them there. It's.
That's probably more true than anything.
Yeah, because they got tired of just getting screwed over by cowboys. They're like, fuck it, I'll sell my horses. I'll get a damn four wheeler. I don't have to worry about another one of these damn cowboys. I can go hire a kid to sit a four wheeler.
Yeah, we've been in enough country that you just couldn't ride a four-wheeler in.
Yeah.
But by damn, there's been a time or two I sure tried.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a time or two I was trying to get a job done by myself. I'd have like 400 head of cows to move, and I'd be like, man, I got to move these cattle 3 miles, and I got 400 head, and it's just me. I know they're gonna outrun me, and it's just gonna be hell, you know. So one afternoon I jumped on this four-wheeler, and I was like, okay, here we go. I don't even think I made it a half a mile. Ripped the rear end clear out from under it.
You
I was
know,
like, well, okay, back to the drawing board.
yeah,
Back to saddle horses.
you know when we were doing that combined cow calf deal there at Syracuse, I was only, you know, I was the cattle manager, but I managed myself, and that was it. I was the only employee of the cattle department, and so
Cook and crew and boss, huh?
yeah, and this was before I convinced him to let me start just roping and tagging calves. So we had a four wheeler with one of those little cages on it, had a little door, and you could hit the little,
Oh yeah.
you could stomp on the little switch and slam the gate, and they're kind of fun. It's a farmer rig, and I know, and I'm a little bit embarrassed to say that I had fun on it, but there was times when like I there you got a couple of those calves where you're like, I know I would have had a hard time roping that little bastard too, especially in those feedlot pins. So yeah, you know, and it's a wonder I never killed any calves, because I'd you know, you get up there and trip the gate, and then they just stop all of a sudden. You just wham, right over the top of them. And, oh, it was yeah, it was a little bit of a shit show, but it was kind of fun. I'm not proud to say it, but I will say it was kind of fun.
Yeah, I mean, you always have to try, you know.
Hmm.
There's a
It was kind of a low point in my cowboy career, but it sure was kind of fun at times.
there was an old kid that neighbored us over in Buell. And they had come from over in the Shoshone country, and he had this calf that he needed to doctor. And he says, Scott, he says, you ever rope a cow from the back of a pickup? And I was like, no. He's like, oh, it's not that bad. So he has me jump on the back of this flatbed pickup, and he hauls ass out through there. I'm thinking, why in the hell aren't we using horses? I mean, he had some damn cowy horses. He could rope good.
Hmm.
He knew cows, you know, and that Shoshone country is kind of known for having some buckaroos, you know. And I thought, what the hell? Why are we roping this cow off a pickup? So he hauls ass up to her, and I neck her, you know, and he's like, dally around that little, you know, the little bar that runs along the flatbed on the side of
Yeah.
it. He's like, take a dally around that. I'm like, okay. So I start winding the tail end of this rope around it. And then he's trying to tell me how to, you know, get shortened up. I'm like, what the hell? I've never battled to get a cow doctored so hard in my life. Trying to get short, and she'd run back and forth and crash into the pickup and pinch you around the side of the bed. Oh my word. I was like, this is absolutely not worth it.
Oh,
So,
and when it's one of those deals when you could just loped up there, threw a loop around her neck, and let her choke you out about, you know, at about 30 feet out there, and then lay her down.
yep, easily,
Yeah.
you know. And still to this day, I'm sitting here wondering why in the world did he want to do it that way? Because
Huh.
he had like 10 head of nice horses,
Yeah.
and he knew how to rope. I know he knew how to rope because I doctored calves in the pasture with him quite a bit. But this was a little cow on his own place. I don't know what his deal was.
I would
But
bet dollars to donuts he thought, I don't want to go saddle a horse, so this will be quicker. And then once you got her roped, you're committed. So then it was just
right,
like, you can't admit you're wrong now.
that's You know what? You're probably right. He probably thought, "Oh, this will be faster. This will be slick."
Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
no, it was absolute mess.
We we used to go through on the in the little side by side, and whoever was in the passenger seat would go rope a calf, and then once that rope come tight, you'd have to go running after it. But after a while, horses were just played out and sour, so you just give them a break, and you go fuck around on the little gators and hope none of your other cowboy buddies see you more than anything.
You know that place that I worked for up in Burley, Idaho. When I first went there, that's how they were doctoring calves, is they were using side by side.
Yeah.
And I asked them one day, I'm like, "So how do you do that?" Because they weren't taking a rope.
Oh.
It's like, what? You're not even trying to rope them out of the side of it? They're like, "No, we just drive up alongside of them and then we circle them up and then bail out on top of them." Like, holy shit. Was, I was in pretty good shape back then, so I was like, okay, we'll give it a shot.
Yeah.
So this kid, he drives up to one, and we're cruising along in this side by side, and he circles one up, jumps out while he's driving. Let the side by side just kind of take off. And of course it cruises to a stop, but he's running out there and he didn't catch up to the calf, and he's like, "Well, we'll get him up to him again." So he drives up to him again, circles him up again. I mean, running the piss out of this sick calf. And I asked him, I said, "Why do you think that's better than roping it off of a horse?" He's like, "Well, you got all this medicine to pack." I'm like, "Why don't you just drive the side by side out and park it and then go rope?"
Yeah.
"Well, then you got to drive the side by side and then you got to go get your horse." It's like, hell, just lead your horse.
Yeah.
They're broke to lead, So that's what we started doing, and that was the only time that we ever tried to get one on, jumping out of that damn buggy. And from there on out, it was roping.
Yeah.
And by the time branding season came around, holy crap, we were some ropey sons of bitches now.
Yeah. That's kind of how we were. Like once we got enough calves on the ground where I wasn't able to keep up on my own, when you got to start hiring some people, and then I convinced them, like, hey, it's gonna be way quicker if we can just rope. I mean, like, and it's in long run, it's gonna be better on the calves too, because one of these days I'm gonna kill one of them calves with with that little buggy, and then yeah, that we went back, and that four wheeler saw very little use after that. I mean, and eventually they just took the cage off completely, but it was yeah. And then I pulled a pretty slick one. I'm not gonna lie, I was kind of proud of this, but I got him to buy ropes and everything for us, so like it was
Wow.
I was doing everything I could to get some of the guys the good hands that worked outside to come work in a feedlot. So I was getting all the perks I could, and we were buying nice, like like good, before I started roping with the long ropes, but like we were buying nice, like classic spiders and shit, like pretty pretty nice ropes, and the company bought them all. So and yeah, we got pretty good at roping calves. It was yeah, that was probably the single biggest jump in my roping ability, was that once we started tagging calves, just roping and tagging them, and doctor and whatnot. It was, yeah, I got way better than I was before.
Oh yeah. Yeah, that's what really, well, I had been several years, as you know, before I went back up to Idaho.
Yeah.
Hadn't even been to any brandings hardly for quite a few years. Went over there and started roping and doctoring all the time. We didn't just have to doctor those baby calves. We had to go doctor in a feed yard as well.
Mm.
So it wasn't too long. We were roped up pretty good. And then branding season come around. Started getting a little bit ropier,
Yeah.
I actually started trying to pull out some of the fancy loops again and throw some of the big old nasty hip shots and a lot of the not a lot of Del Viennos, but just that kind of
Yeah.
fancy looping, you know. And
Turnover loops.
yeah, it all started to come back together for me. But shoot, this year, I think it's been 6 months since I did any roping, you know, before branding season started.
Mm.
So once branding season rolled around, I was kind of rusty again. Not bad,
Yeah.
not like it had been years, you know. And so it took me a minute to get roped up again. Now I feel like I'm back to my normal self. Not that I'm some kind of roper, but I feel a lot better about it now than I did, you know, coming out of spring. That's always the tough part, is when you first break out in the spring trying to rope and you haven't roped anything all winter.
Oh yeah.
Kind of get a little bit, just a little rusty, you know.
I know. I'm flying solo for the next 3 or 4 days here, so I'm gonna break out the GoPro again. We got nothing but crossbred dairy steers and Holstein heifers, so and it's real slow right now. So I'm just gonna take my time and rope shit just to rope shit.
There you go.
Yeah.
So do you guys generally rope to doctor over there?
No, we got since they're all customer cattle, and then like even on the beef side, they're mostly one owner, but even then, when it's like a family operation, so there might be 3 different owners in one set of cattle, and so we got to keep pretty precise inventory, so everything goes through the chute unless they can't. You know, they have no qualms doctoring in the pen, but they, you know, they like to run it through the chute so we can get us all the information that they need anyway. So, but yeah, they got no problem with us using a rope, and if something's going to be easier to just to doctor in the pen, you know, like say you get something with an abscess like right on the shoulder, like there's no sense trying to run that through the chute because you're going to have to catch him with his front legs out, and he's going to beat you to death with his head. So you're better off just to rope him, stretch him out, and just do it out there in the pen. And so like my boss do my job, and it's pretty nice.
Yeah, that's good. So I'm trying to figure out where you're located exactly.
Okay, so we're about an hour and a half south of Reno, or about an hour south of Carson. So if you take 395 out of Carson through Gardnerville, and then right before like 395 will there's a junction there, and then 395 will go on over through Topaz Lake and then into California right there. If you take that other spur, that little highway 208 will take you down into Smith Valley, and that's where I'm at.
Okay.
So we're like the 2 valleys over from California, basically.
So there's some pretty good cow outfits around there.
It's a lot of family owned stuff, and yeah, they're not bad. They're pretty, for the most part, pretty traditional, you know, buckaroo style. It's a head and heel just about everywhere.
Oh yeah.
Not any real like big outfits though. It's all kind of smaller family stuff, but and yeah, a lot of irrigated pasture, you know, hay fields here in the valley, and then high mountain pasture over on the California side. A lot of them run, you know, running here in Nevada, and then up in Colville, Bridgeport, that area, Bishop.
Okay.
Yeah. So
did you make it over that Bishop Mule Days?
I haven't yet. I want to. I hear that's a good time.
Yeah, I'd kind of like to get over that way and check it out sometime.
I would
Haven't gotten
too.
a chance to yet.
That's another one on my list. I've kind of got a bucket list of like all the cool cowboy events that I want to go to. Like I want to go up to Pendleton for the roundup there. I want to go to Jordan Valley, and and then just like do podcasts while I'm up there. But like I want to go to the Brannaman Pro Am down there in San Luis Obispo, and just hit some of those like what was the one Tracie was just at? It was like Ben Johnson days down in Texas, and then there's like Tom Horn days there in Wyoming. There's a bunch of those little deals I'd like to go to, and I'm just gonna check them off my list one by one, hopefully.
Yeah. Yeah, that'd be pretty cool. I've been to a few of those, but I've always wanted to go to what's the big roping that or not roping, but the big rodeo that they have out in Wyoming that's all outdoors. I mean, it's all out of the arena.
Is that up in KC?
Is that where that is? I don't remember now. I've always wanted to go watch it though. It's where they get on their bucking horses from another horse.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that might be Tom Horn days. I'm not for sure, but
Maybe so.
there's some cool events like that, and I'd like to do some like goofy cowboy events too. Like that deal I was saying, like the other day I had one where like it was it's a ranch rodeo, but whoever's on the ground has to wear one of those like inflatable sumo outfits.
What?
Yeah. Imagine the kind of wrecks you would have then.
Right.
I think that'd be a hell of a lot of fun, though.
Speaking of getting on bucking horses, it's been a few years ago now, but my uncle, he would put on that McCammon rodeo every year over in McCammon, Idaho. And he would always do one traditional bronc ride every year.
Yeah.
And several times I ended up being the guy to climb on the bucking horse, and I'd climb on a pickup man's horse, and then I'd climb onto my bucking horse and then make my bronc ride.
Uh-huh.
But the one year they couldn't seem to get this horse to stay between the other the two pickup man horses. And Dave Hogan yells at me, he says, "Just climb on her. It used to be a saddle horse." So I just swung on. Away we went.
There you go. That's pretty funny.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. It took her a minute to get bucking, but once she went to bucking pretty good, she gave me a good spur ride, and I was just riding a regular stock saddle.
Yeah.
Pretty fun.
A lot of those old time rodeos, they didn't really have a time limit. It was just kind of you rode until you thought you either got bucked off or you thought you put on good enough show to win it, and then you jumped off. But like there's sometimes they'd ride for 30 seconds to a minute or something like that. And, a minute's a long damn time when a horse is bucking. That's a long time to ride a bucking horse.
Yeah, if you've got a horse that's bucking good and hard for more than 30 seconds.
Yeah.
Both of you are working your tails off now.
Yeah. And it's funny is most of the time you both get weaker as you go, but some of those old horses, they seem like they just grab another gear. And old Mr. Ted, this old fella from Oregon that lives here in the valley, I was riding a horse for him, and after about the 6th time I think she threw me, I told Mr. Ted, I hate to leave. I was like, this a terrible spot to leave off on a horse, but she just seems to not be weakening, and I am weakening rapidly. I was like, I don't see me winning this fight today, so I'm gonna throw the towel now. 10 years ago, I probably would have kept on it until I got knocked out or got a road, but yeah, I just got up a little bit slower every time. I think I'm good.
This is I won't gloat on this story, but I'll tell you, Scotty Satterthwaite cut a horse to me back when I was on the Spanish Ranch. They called him Bomber.
Mm-hmm.
And, I asked Scott after I went for a bronc ride on this horse one day, so why did they name that horse Bomber? And he says it's because when they started him, he says there was 8 cowboys on my crew. And he says 8 of those guys climbed on that horse consecutively and would get bucked off. And he said 2 of them climbed on him again. He said 10 guys got farted down off that horse before they got him rode.
Jeez.
And I learned why they called that horse Bomber, because, I mean, you talk about buck hard now.
Yeah.
Ooh, he'd make your freaking fillings fall out of your teeth.
Yeah. That that little mare of Mr. Ted's, like, she didn't do anything just out of the ordinary. She you know, it was more just like a really hard crow hop. She just kept after it, you know, and that high crow hop's probably the hardest thing to catch a rhythm, you know. Like, it's not hard to ride, but it's hard to get into a rhythm and really inflict any punishment on them. If and you know, that's kind of that's kind of my MO if we're you know, if they're bucking. I don't really want to make a fancy ride. I like to just get them covered and make it miserable while I'm doing it, so they don't want to do it again. And
I'm not very good at making it miserable for them. Usually I just grab a hold of anything that's got, you know, a handhold of some kind, and I just try to weather the storm.
Yeah. There's some of them, that's all you can do, because they're too strong to pull their head around or get their head up. So you just gotta, give them their head and just try to stay on.
Yeah, that old Dave Best taught me a trick years ago, and I had never had to do it for a long time. I had a little horse over at the Sunlight that he could damn sure buck me off.
Yeah.
He bucked me off a couple of times one day. And I mean, I windmilled out there a long ways. When I hit the ground, I mean, I was hurting. I was hurting bad. I was like, man, I got to get this horse rode. And I kind of started the war on that deal. I mean, I'll admit it. Been listening to TJ Simons talk too much about riding broncs, and I was like, let's ride a bronc, you know. And
yeah.
I was kind of out of bronc riding shape. I hadn't been riding bucking horses at that time very much. When they cut this horse to me, they said he was a pretty good broke horse. And this is the first time that I had to ride him. I was out there going to go doctor some calves up on the hill. I was kind of up in this little draw by myself. I stepped on him, and he just kind of humped up real bad. And I didn't stick him hard, but I stuck him a little bit. He took a little jump, and I was like, you want a buck? And I really hucked it to him. Son of a bitch come apart now, and he sucked back and landed back in his tracks going the other way. And then he sucked back again and landed back in his tracks the other direction. So he was jumping 180 degrees and sucking back like a bull does, you know.
Yeah.
And dashboarded me pretty hard about that third jump, and I literally flipped off of this horse. I landed in a heap, and after this happened to me twice, I was like, okay, I got to get him rode.
Yeah.
I got to get these cattle doctored, and I damn sure ain't going to go home and tell the boss I didn't get it done. You know?
Yeah.
So I had, I'm trying to think what the strap was that I used, but I had a little strap handy. I think it was just a halter rope.
Oh, okay.
And I wrapped it around my stirrup leather on one side and buckled it because it was just that bull snap on a halter rope, you know.
Uh-huh.
Running underneath his belly. And then I tied it to my other stirrup leather. They call it hobbling your stirrups.
Yeah.
And so this has been the only time that I've had to do it. But I got it tied to that other stirrup leather, and I climbed in the middle of him, and he did his little trick again. Sucked back and sucked back and sucked back, and he did this about 10 times. And I was like, good hell, when's he gonna finish, you know?
Yeah.
And I was hurting pretty good because I mean he was really getting with it.
Yeah.
Well, he figured out he wasn't going to get me off, and he just lined out and started bucking like a good saddle bronc horse does, and I mean kicking high over his head, bucking hard. And we went for, I'll bet you, a good 400 yards,
Huh.
and he did not weaken. I
Huh.
mean, he just kept it going, and I thought for sure he was going to weaken, and he just wouldn't. And pretty quick, of course, the whole time I'm trying to put the iron to him as much as I can without having my feet able to move,
Yeah.
I just kind of ripping up on him, trying to
Yeah.
rake up. And we just kept on a bucking, and then he'd run for about, maybe 20 yards or so, and then he'd just really go to hogging again. And I was like, son of a bitch, is this guy ever gonna stop? We did this for probably a half a mile. And I mean, I was hurting. He
I
was beating
bet.
the hell out of me.
Oh yeah.
And I thought, wow, am I ever gonna get anything doctored? And he finally kind of quit and went to doctoring calves. Well, every time I would step back on him again, the battle was on. He'd go to bucking with me and buck for about maybe 100 yards. Of course, now he was tired
Yeah.
and did not want to try, did not want to chase a calf. Talk about an ignorant bastard. After that, I did not want to ride him, period. End of story. I was like, shit, put him in somebody else's string.
Yeah.
But that's probably about the biggest war I've ever had with a horse.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you could consider it winning.
That's yeah.
I was damn sure cheating,
Yeah. Yeah, I've had a couple of those where you're just like you try everything and you're just like I don't even know where to go from here. We've escalated it to the level that like if we go any further, like we're kind of at a moral dilemma at that point. It's like I'm not real sure where to go from here without like really initiating a lot of violence.
Yeah. You know that Dwight Hill, I worked for him riding colts years ago, and I had a little horse that, well, back up a step. We went over to Boise to put on a little clinic over there for some folks, and I think it was mostly supposed to be a bridle horse clinic
Uh-huh.
and horsemanship, but he ended up taking a horse that was bucking with people, and he's like, "Ready, Scott, you're going to be the human missile." And I was like, "Oh, lovely,"
Yeah, super.
And I had been riding colts quite a bit and felt pretty forked, so I wasn't real worried about it. Well, he ropes a hind foot on this horse. I'd never had anybody do that before,
Mm.
So this horse goes to hogging and gets about 2 jumps, and Dwight takes a dally and, I mean, tipped this horse on its nose, and damn near, I thought we were going to go down. Oh my gosh. You talk about change this horse's attitude about bucking now.
Oh yeah.
After about 4 or 5 times of that horse didn't want to buck.
Yeah.
It totally changed his mind. But,
Yeah. That's one of those things that with how things have progressed with horsemanship over the years, and some of the old time ways just get looked down upon, because we're more sophisticated. But yeah, there was a reason for those old time ways, and a lot of it is because you had to do a job, and that was what you had to do your job on. So let's make this work, and we don't have 6 weeks to do groundwork on them. Like we got shit to do today. So
yeah.
if you want to buck, I'm gonna dump you on your head, and we'll keep doing that until you don't want to get dumped on your head anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And it's effective.
Right. And I was told, Dwight told me he learned that from Ray Hunt.
Oh really?
Deal a rope and a hind foot, yeah. And so, a lot of people, I think they figure, well, they know, they know this natural horsemanship, but you got to wonder, what what exactly has been passed down? What have people walked away from?
Yeah.
When I was in college, there was a guy who was putting on colt starting classes, and most of those horses, they were laying down.
Mm-hmm.
And that was his big thing, was laying those horses down.
Yep.
I don't know, you don't hear as much about it anymore, but I've had a couple of different horses that were pretty wall-eyed, and I mean, they liked to battle.
Yep.
Never would settle down. They just wouldn't come around,
Mm-hmm.
And so I didn't just lay them down once. And my dad taught me, he's like, yeah, lay them down and throw a tarp over them and leave them there for a while. I didn't have an hour to get these horses going. I had to get out there and get salt, or I had to get range road or whatever, and I was by myself.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'd lay them down. And a lot of times it seemed like if I would lay them down 3 or 4 times in a row,
Mm-hmm.
I could get more done with them mentally than I could than leaving them laying down.
Yeah. You
So,
lay them down, sit on their head for a minute, and then let them up, lay them down again,
yeah,
sit on their belly and poke them in the eye a little bit, and then
yeah,
and then let them back up. And yeah, that way they know, like, yeah, I'm not going anywhere. I can't go anywhere.
yep. Yeah, I had a big paint horse that a guy had brought me. He had been a stud horse, and he cut him when he was like 4.
Mm.
Big old soggy, kind of a cantankerous bastard. And every time I would use him, I had to do that.
Yeah.
And I just decided, you know what, that's just what I got to do. And that horse knew that's what was coming.
Mm-hmm.
And he would fight me on it and fight me to get the pack saddle on, and we'd battle and battle and battle, and finally I'd be like, you know what, you're going down.
Yeah.
So I'd pull up a leg and pull his head around, and he'd flop on his side, and I'd leave him lay there for a few minutes, and I'd kind of pet around his head and what have you, and let him get back up and force him down again. I shouldn't say force him, because really they make the decision.
Oh yeah.
They just get tired of trying to stand on 3 legs, and they go, you know what, it's a lot easier to lay down.
Yep.
So they flop over.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
And
you just
then you can tell the ones that you have to do that on multiple times, because they'll fight you to a point, and then they're just like, all right, fine.
yeah. Well, shoot, I even had a good old broke horse that generally he was really good to shoe.
Mm-hmm.
I had him on some pretty good pasture, and there was another kid that had been using him, and he'd been graining the shit out of him. The horse was as fat as a tick. And I had never had this horse buck ever. And this kid had told me, he says, he bucked me off, Scott. I'm like, what? Bucked you off? what the hell are you talking about? Well, I needed to put some shoes on him, and I went to shoe him. And this horse was fighting me, and I was like, that's not like him to fight me. And so I flopped him on his side and laid him down, pretty quick. When I let him up, he was good to shoe. I didn't even have to pull up any feet. I just went to shoeing like I normally did, got him all shod, and I needed to go out and check cows with him. And I trotted out of the headquarters there, not headquarters, but out of my cow camp, about maybe a quarter of a mile. And he was doing pretty good. And then bang, he goes to bucking. And I was like, what the hell? And he was a big, soggy kind of horse, but he couldn't buck hard enough to buck your hat off.
Yeah.
I just remembered thinking, oh, it tells me how round-assed this kid was, Because if he couldn't get by that, he damn sure couldn't ride a regular bucking horse.
Mm-hmm.
So this kid, he tells me the next time I talk to him, he's like, yeah, I've been graining those horses. Why are you graining them? Well, I just thought, it'd be nice for them to have that extra feed where we ride them as hard as we do. And I'm thinking, man, they all look like they're about to founder. They're heavy as they can be, But yeah, that's why they were so cantankerous. But dang sure laying that old gelding down made him better to shoe as well.
No, I bet.
Yeah.
Those fat horses are hard to ride because they got all the piss and vinegar, and then the saddle don't fit quite like it's supposed to. And pretty soon you get to rolling, and you're just like, shit. You gotta like you almost gotta go the bull rider style and reach, reach, and
Right.
shift that saddle.
Oh, I can't tell you how many times I've had a saddle shift on me while
Oh,
I'm. It's
it's
usually not. Go ahead.
always those fat ones coming in, first thing in spring, and they're just barrel fat and sassy and just wanting a fight too.
Oh, I have this little horse I was starting over at the feed yard
Oh,
at
it's
the Smith feed yard, and this little son of a gun, he was kind of snaky acting, but you didn't know what he was going to do because he wouldn't let you know until you were in the middle of it.
Yeah.
And we had a pretty nice spot to ride a colt there. It had this big arena. It was a big indoor arena, and they had it worked up and everything so that they could ride colts, because all these kids I was riding with, they'd all ride colts besides riding in a feed yard. And so I step on this colt, and he had really good withers, and the saddle that I ride, it's a Larry Christensen saddle.
Mm-hmm.
And when I had him make it, I told him I was riding quite a few good withered kind of horses, and so it fit this colt really good normally. And I didn't cut him in half, I just pulled up my cinch and stepped on him. Well, I get about 3 steps, and he blows up, and I mean jumps as high in the air as he can jump. And I could feel this saddle shifting. Well, he had good withers, like I say, so it wasn't shifting side to side.
Mm-hmm.
When he would hit the ground, it would slide way up his neck, and then he'd jump in the air and it'd slide clear back. And I was like, son of a bitch, this thing's gonna go over his head on me, and you've probably had that happen before.
Oh yeah.
So I keep thinking it's gonna go over his head. It's gonna go over his head, but he'd hit the ground and jump in the air again, and it'd set that saddle a little bit back. And he has a really good heart girth. I mean, nice and
Yeah.
fat, so it wasn't like it was gonna come off the back end. But
Yeah.
good Lord, after about 10 jumps, he started to turn to the left, and I thought he was going to jump hard to the left, and I was like, shit, this saddle's going to tilt on me, and that'll be the end of me. Well, he's looking towards the alleyway that goes into the horse stalls.
Mm-hmm.
I had it open. We didn't have a panel across there. It was just open to go right into that alley, and that's where I normally would saddle him. And he's bucking that direction. And he kind of, after he started to turn left, he kind of lined out. And I was like, oh, damn, we're going to jump right into that slick concrete alleyway, And just then there's this kid. Oh, can't remember his name off the top of my head. But anyway, pretty decent hand. He jumps out and yells, whoa, to try to keep that horse from running down the alleyway, We're bucking down the alleyway in that set of stalls. And that horse froze up. I mean, that fast.
Huh.
Just absolutely stopped.
Huh.
It's like, oh my gosh, thank goodness, because I thought for sure he was going to jump right or left. Whatever he was going to do, it was going to be the death of me.
Yeah. Oh, I've had a couple of those where, because I typically I don't grab my rope, I don't grab leather. Like I just 2 hands on the reins, just trying to get. I'm pulling his head around to the right and just trying to get him spinning. But this old horse that I got, he's just cranky when he's fresh, and same type of buck where just real high crow hop, just
Yeah.
not hard to ride, but hard to it's just hard to catch a rhythm, and all of a sudden we're loading cattle on the scale, and he'd been pretty snorty, but I thought he'd bucked once already, so I thought he was out of it. But all of a sudden he just cut in two and just like bouncing right through the middle of we had about 200 head of 800-pound Charolais steers right there, and like he's going right through the middle of them. I was grabbing every piece of leather I could find. Like, oh fuck,
Yeah.
this is gonna hurt. And yeah, then all of a sudden, like he gets about halfway through them and then just stops, and and then you're just like quivering. You're like, well, you did that to yourself, you idiot. Like,
Yeah.
what are you acting all scared for? That was you. That wasn't me. I didn't want that.
Oh, some of those horses will crack you up.
Oh man, I was just like, oh fuck, I'm gonna die today. This is the day that I die, And it's like, and then he just shuts it down, and like I don't know. And luckily, those steers just like they bailed out of the way just in time, and nobody got tangled up. But I was like, whoa, there's no way this ends well. I was like, there's this can end no way but badly, and it worked out. But I was like, oh.
Yeah, it's funny. Some of them will never quit their whole life. They'll just be bucking horses for the rest of their days.
Yeah.
I had one in my string over at Ellison's that his name was LJ, and not a real big horse, but always cantankerous. You'd be brushing his belly off, and he'd kick at his belly.
Yeah.
And you couldn't cinch him up tight when you walked him out of the barn because he'd go to bucking if you cinched him up. I mean, even remotely tight. So then you'd tighten up your cinch once you got out of the barn, and you knew you were going to have some kind of battle with this son of a gun.
Oh yeah, every time.
And it didn't matter what the battle was. You were going to go to battle.
Mm-hmm.
And at first, he'd buck with me, and he figured out that he couldn't buck me off. So the next thing was he would be difficult to get on. And when I say difficult, I mean the cow boss would crowd him against the corral fence, and then he would just sit there and snub that horse against his saddle horn between his horse and the fence. And I'd have to kind of climb underneath his horse's head and then slide up between there and climb on that horse and try not to get kicked while I was at it, because he was going to try to kick me as I was coming up. Then I'd get in the middle of the saddle. Well, after this horse had figured out he couldn't buck me off, of course, it was a runaway.
Yeah.
And for a long time, it was just runaway after runaway. And then I knew if he didn't try to run off, we were going for a bronc ride.
Yeah.
And he was one of them that had a mile of wind. I mean, and of course, a lot of those horses on the span had that Coggins, and they say it takes their wind, but it sure didn't bother this cat. I mean, he'd buck a half a mile.
Yeah.
He didn't buck real hard, but he'd buck consistent for a half a mile.
Just keep after it, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it's we had my dad had quite a few horses growing up, raised quite a few, and there was some that they never would buck. There was always a handful that just like never bucked a day in their life, just never had it in them for whatever reason. And then you'd have some that would start really good, and like it was ride 3 was always the scary ride. Like they first ride they're probably gonna buck, but they don't have their feet under them. Second ride's kind of the same, and then third ride, they figured out what's there. They know how to move, especially the ones that haven't bucked yet. Now they know how to move, and they haven't been happy this whole time. They just didn't know quite what to do about it. But now they got their feet under them, and they're like, all right, let's go. And yeah, that third ride is always kind of that's the fun one. I don't know. I forget who I was talking with the other day, but you know what? You'll know exactly what I mean. But like right as you swing your leg over, and right as that leg's starting to come down, there's like a very like still moment where just like everything kind of pauses, and you're just like, all right, here we go. and then you hit the saddle, and like who knows where it goes from there. But there's just like it just like pauses. Everything pauses right there, and you're just like, all right. And then your ass hits the saddle, and it's on.
Yeah.
It's kind of wild. I don't know. It's every time I've had a horse buck that like I knew was gonna buck. Every time that happened, just like right before you catch that other stirrup, it just like freeze frame almost, and yeah, it's wild.
It's funny how it works.
Mm.
But it's one of those things you get so you crave it after a certain amount of time.
Yeah.
Well, Matt, I'm gonna have to either go plug into a wall or my phone's gonna die on me.
All right. Well, let's call that for the main episode. I'll go plug your phone in, and I'm gonna go take a leak, and then we'll come back and do 20 minutes or so for my paying subscribers, and if that works for you.
It sounds good to me.
All right. Well, thanks everybody for tuning in, Scott. It's always a awesome time. And yeah, thanks for tuning in, and move your ass. We're burning daylight.
All right, we'll see.
Your eyes up in the morning, beneath the stars so bright. Pull your hat down, make sure your cinch is tight. Horse is kinda snuffy, cold chill up your spine. We'll get your ass moving, son, we're burning daylight. Burning daylight. Burning daylight. In the saddle till the job's done right. Burning daylight. Well, life is just a gather, and you won't catch 'em all. But when you ride through the gate, make sure you sit up tall. I can see the horizon, it's looking pretty bright. Well, get your ass moving, son, we're burning daylight. Burning daylight. Burning daylight. In the saddle till the job's done right.